Hello everybody, welcome back, and we are on the quest for the Elite Translator. So, for this video we're going to talk about loops. Now, in Python, we have a couple different types of loops that we can use. One, slightly more complicated than the other. So we're going to start with the easier of the two. Alright. Let's see if I can get... Oh, it's as big as it'll let me get. Okay. So a loop statement starts with a for. This is called a for loop. And this variable here, I'm just going to read this line. For n in range, using the range function, 1 and 5, we're going to print this string n equals n. And then after the loop is finished, we're going to print loop finished. Okay. Now, what is this doing? Okay. This is going to take this n. It doesn't matter what you call it. We can call it anything we would like. ABC, ABC. All it's going to do is it's going to take this value, and we're just going to call it n for short. It can be n, I, whatever. It can be whatever you want. So it's going to take that value, n. And what we're asking it for is in this range. So from 1 up to not including 5. That's the range function. So essentially we're going to go 1 to 4 with this right here. Well, the first time the loop goes around, so we're on number 1, we're going to give this n value to number 1. Then it's going to loop around. The second time, it's going to give this n value to number 2. And then it's going to loop around a third time, and then give that value. And it's going to loop around a fourth time. And after this fourth time, we should be completed with the loop, and then we're going to break out of the loop, and it will print loop finished. Now, if you don't understand that, that's okay. I'm going to show you when I run the script, you'll see, and hopefully have a better understanding. But just remember that this is going to get assigned to each one of these instances. So every time something happens, it's going to assign that temporary variable to it. Okay? So loops inside of loops. A little more tricky, but if you look at it and really study it, it does kind of make sense. So for n in range 1, 4, so we know we're going 1, 2, 3, right? Then within that loop we have a j that's going to be going A, B, C. And then our final print statement is giving n. So our 3n ranges are our 3n numbers, and then our 3 j letters. Now, it goes inside the loop, goes outside the loop. Okay. It's going to make way more sense when I print it out and you go, oh, okay, that's what that means. While loops. While loops are a little different. While loops, you start with your value above the while loop, while it can be equal to whatever you'd like. It really depends on what you're doing. What we're trying to do with this while loop is we're saying if n, while n is less than 5, then until it's greater than 5, we're going to print out n, we're going to print out this n equals n. And then we're telling it that n equals n plus 1, so we're going to increment it each time by 1, okay, up to greater than 5, right? So we can be equal to or greater than, less than, all those operators that you can use can be done inside of here. And this is a pretty standard while loop. Now this line right here, it can be shortened, and some people do shorten it. It all depends on your style. Adding a plus here and removing this value here is the same as saying, is the exact same as saying n plus 1. So that's the same thing. You can write it out, it doesn't matter. And then this one's going to come out and we're going to get loop finished. Alright, so now that we've gone over that, I'm going to go ahead and run this, and then we're going to see how it looks. Alright. So sorry about that. Exercise 14. Okay, here's our loop. Now, let's do a side-by-side comparison to these real quick. Alright. Now, here's our first pronounced statement right here. N equals 1, 2, 3, 4. Now remember, we said this range function, it goes up to but not including. So it's not going to go up to 5. If we want to go up to 5, we change this number to a 6. Okay? It's just the way the range function works. Don't try to find it. Then our print statement, obviously, this anything to the left here, this is just our little print statement we made. Now look, n. The first time the loop goes around, n is equal to 1. Right? The second time it goes around, it's going to be equal to 2. Then it's going to go around to 3. And then 4. But since we said up to not including 5, the loop's finished. Okay? For the second one, for the loop inside of a loop. Alright, it's a little... Oh, let's try to get that all on one side so when I want you guys to be able to... Okay, there it is. So now, when this first one goes around, right, it's going to go around the whole loop process. The first time it goes around the whole loop, n is going to get the value of 1, and then j here is going to get the value of a, right? And then the second time it loops around, n is going to get the value of 1. After it breaks in the, after it breaks in the first loop, we're going inside of the loop here. So now j is going to get the b value, j is going to get b, right? Then j is going to get c. And then after we've done that 3 times, because we told it 1 to 4, so up to not including 4. So basically 1 to 3. There we go. We got 1 to 3. So we're on our 1s right now. For each one, we had to do an A, a B, and a C. But the n value stayed the same. That's what the inner loop is doing, is giving j these values right here. Okay, so then the loop goes around again. Alright, because we're going up, up, and away. Now, the second time it goes, it does the exact same thing. We give A, B, C, except this time in conjunction with n equals to 2. And then A, B, C again in conjunction with n equals to 3. So it's very powerful because it's a small amount of code here, but a lot of stuff being generated. Okay, this right here, n equals 1, 2, 3, 4, is your while loop here, okay? Now, this while loop right here, all this code is doing the exact same thing that this 3 lines of code is doing. So this is where it can get a little tricky for people who don't know which one to use. And I'll say for most things, you can get away with just a for loop. It's a lot easier, more understandable. Sometimes while loops do need, or are necessary. And when the code dictates it, use it. That's the best way to basically define that. So, Next up, we're going to talk about conditionals. So, conditionals. I have prepared a nice little fun thing for us to do using conditionals, and we will go to that on the next one. So, for the time being, I will see you in the next one, and we're going to go over conditionals, and then we're going to do a solid recap, and I'm going to give an example of something close to what the l33t translator does, except I'm going to mix it up a little bit. So when it comes time for you to make this, you're going to have all the tools in your toolbox that you need. You're just going to have to place things in the proper order. All right, I'll see you on the next video. You guys take care.